Hello and welcome to You OK Man. I'm Elliot.
I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And you okay, guys?
Elliot forgot to make a jingle. Now he's sick and he doesn't want to. I'll do it by next week.
So this is episode 1 of You OK Man, which is just going to be kind of a general sort of mental health chat podcast, if that makes sense, amongst sort of 3 men. Oh no, I don't like calling myself a man.
Yeah, 3 men.
3 boys.
You are a man.
Oh.
You're over the age of 18 years old.
Thank you,
Legally.
Jake. It's just kind of a frank but friendly discussion about mental health and sort of our ongoing mental health. So, do you want me to begin?
Yeah.
Go for it. Let's hear about your
Cool.
week.
Yeah, it's been a strange week. It's week 7 of lockdown, week 8 of lockdown. And I've found this has been a proper roller coaster in terms of like introspection. Because at the start I was fine. I was super burnt out by the term that had come before. So I was super burnt out, and I was like, okay, obviously national pandemic, it's not that great, but a little bit of a break. And it was nice to kind of be able to relax without any of that guilt. I don't know whether you guys get it, but I feel like whenever I give myself time off, I'm fighting this guilt that's inside of me that's being like, you need to be doing something productive. You need to be doing your course or a podcast or editing or organizing or writing, you know?
Standing
There's
still
always-
is not an option, is
Yeah.
it? Like,
I feel like a shark. So you know how sharks, if they stop swimming, they die. I feel like that. I feel like I just have to keep swimming. I have to keep going. Otherwise, all of it's going to catch up. And I think that's
that in itself, though, that analogy is exhausting.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what I've experienced during lockdown. Is I've been so worried for so long about what happens if I stop. And I got to the start of lockdown, I was like, this is great, because I'm not allowed to feel guilty about stopping. And then a few weeks kind of passed, and I kind of got a bit worse in terms of feeling like I really should be doing stuff, but I'm not. So I threw myself into more sort of physical tasks. So I did a bunch of running for a while, and my dad's rebuilding the house at the moment, so I've been helping with that, painting, insulation, digging.
How did you find the running? Was that helpful for your mental health?
Really good. I've stopped now, and I'm trying to get back into it, but that's a whole other thing. But I found that running's really good because it's exercise, which kind of helps your body function better anyway, right? But it means that I don't have to think about anything else when I'm running, you know. All I have to think about is the next step, the next breath. And because even when I go for walks and stuff, I can't listen to nothing. Like if I'm walking the dogs, I have to be listening to a podcast, because I find that I get worried if I'm not listening to something. Does that make sense? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
It's an additional part of that whole standing still. You're feeling like you're doing I get that too, like with very meaningless tasks. I feel like I need to be doing something on top of that. Otherwise I'm not doing something.
And it feels like it's a mix of, on one hand, I don't want to feel like it's wasted time. So a podcast is teaching me something, but at the same time, I don't want that quiet that might make my thoughts start questioning themselves. Like it's that white noise to drown it out. And I've not started, I've done this for years now, but falling asleep watching or listening to something, because if I'm there in bed in silence, my brain just starts going. It's scary. It's not something that I'm used to. I'm not used to that silence. I've kind of grown up with podcasts and Netflix and stuff like that.
You say it's been 7 weeks of lockdown, and I imagine we've all got our own little stories about how it's affected us directly, but how has it affected you? Because I know you're quite a, outwardly going person. You like going out, you like doing things, you like hanging around with your friends, and being isolated from all of that must be quite difficult.
Yeah, it is. I'm very lucky that I'm isolating with my girlfriend. So I've still got someone that I can sort of talk to and confide in and stuff. But yeah, like I said, it was at the start, I was really thankful for it. And then I kind of found myself feeling like a shark that had to stay still, right? I felt myself dying, and it was dying is quite an extreme way of putting it, but I could, it was like like I could feel like a tension in my chest whenever I was doing anything, because in my brain it was going, okay, you have to do coursework, you have to be doing a podcast, you have to be editing, you have to be writing. But at the same time, I couldn't get my brain to a place where I was able to be productive, because without my knowing, it's trying to comprehend a global pandemic. And that's something which, like, we're just not set up for as men or humans. And trying to get my head around that, even subconsciously, was taking up so much of my mental capacity that even if I wanted to, I couldn't work.
I spoke to somebody the other day who said that, you know, they've been affected by the pandemic. You know, they've been put on furlough. You know, it's affected their lives, but they had a dream about it the other day, and it was only after that dream and waking up, you know, in fear, that they actually finally realized that this was going on. And it's all of that subconscious, like you just described, sort of, it's there. But actually, when you're thinking about it, like you were talking about white noise, having the pandemic additionally on top of that in the background is not a nice thing.
And you've got to turn that white noise up louder, right, to drone out the pandemic. And
exactly.
That's I think what I found myself doing. You know, I was watching TV all day because I couldn't get up and move, because if I got up, that meant that I was able to do things and I should be doing something. But that just coming back to something that you said, the difference between knowing and comprehending is something which I think plays such a huge role in, like, identity and just people in general. But the idea between I know something and I comprehend something. So I know that the universe is hundreds of millions of light years big, but I can't comprehend that. My brain can't fathom how big that is. I know that there are 7 billion people on the planet, but I can't picture in my head, I can't comprehend 7 billion people. And it comes into the idea of, like, identity and what's the other bit I'm trying to say here? It's like in how I'm feeling and anxiety and stuff. I know what might be bothering me and what might be making me feel anxious, and I understand that it's not something serious. So say I'm worried about a social event, right? If I'm worried about going to a Susu TV social, I know that it's going to be great because they're people that I'm friends with and they know me and stuff like that. But it's making me anxious, but because I can't comprehend that fact. Does that make sense? Have I been a bit rambly with that?
No, I'll tell you what. So you just spoke about, you know, going and feeling anxious about meeting people in a, you know, sort of real life capacity, not virtually. How have you found Zoom calling people, speaking to people virtually? Because I know a lot of people have additional anxieties about doing those sorts of things.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, actually. It was really nice at the start, but I'm finding these endless Zoom quizzes really weird, because it feels like sort of half interacting with people, because whenever people talk over each other, everyone can't hear anything. And so it's this odd new social experience where everyone has to take their turn to speak. And I don't find it very engaging. I find it difficult. But it's the best that we have at the moment. But yeah, I found myself missing social interactions less than I thought I would. I think I've spent quite a lot of lockdown just trying to overcome personally my mental hurdles of being productive. And this past week especially has been difficult because I've spent most of lockdown doing physical stuff. So painting or bricklaying or whatever. And that's felt productive to me because I don't have the mental capacity to do actual work. But this past week I've come down with something. I don't think it's corona, but like I've had shortness of breath and a headache and fever and whatever.
But then the fact that there is a global pandemic happening at the moment, you know, that plays into the placebo of the whole, well, if I get ill, am I going to get this virus? And that's just a whole other something to fear, isn't it?
Yeah. But coming down with this, I've experienced real fatigue this week, and to the point where, like, you know, I was talking to Tom earlier, but literally moving from my bed to the bathroom can put me out of breath. And it's really affected me in a way that no other, I've never had an illness that has affected me in this sort of a physical way. I've never had experienced fatigue like it, but it's meant that I've not been able to do any of those physical things that made me feel productive. And so now I've had a week of really not being able, like, I've had a physical and mental barrier preventing me from doing work or physical work. And that's where I'm kind of really struggling. Is I'm trying to get myself to be productive, and it's about lowering that barrier for entry, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So in doing something like a podcast like this, I've committed to not editing it too much, and just uploading it on YouTube to make it easy. And it's just making it so that I can do those little things that help me to feel productive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think so. And given the fact that you have had both of those blocks, both a mental and a physical block, how you've described yourself in the fact that you need to do things, that must have been just quite a difficult time this past week, as you've described it as being. Well played for getting through it though, because I mean I know you're still feeling a little bit ill, but ultimately it's proven that you can come through the other side of something like that.
Yeah, and like I've never. So I one of my hobbies that one of my hobbies is painting Warhammer, and I found that like no matter how I'm feeling, however anxious or low or whatever I'm feeling, that's always been my escape previously. But feeling like so fatigued to the point where I can't pick up a paintbrush, that again, it's a point where I'm sat at my desk being like, I need to distract myself from what's going on in my head, but I can't because I can't pick up that paintbrush. And it's just forced me to confront a lot of kind of these barriers and anxieties that I've not previously confronted.
And do you feel better off for having, I mean, I know it's only in the past week that you perhaps have confronted them, but do you feel better off for now beginning to confront them?
It's difficult to say. Like it absolutely feels like it's really difficult. It like whenever I end up confronting something, I always feel more tired and depressed and low afterwards, because just you've exhausted. That's a better way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel mentally exhausted because it takes up that aspect of your brain. But I do think that on the whole, it's absolutely a good thing. And this week I've had a GP appointment, and just talking about my anxiety, because it's really started to affect me. And that resulted in a referral for a therapist for cognitive behavioral therapy. So that's really good. Like that's a really good step forward for me. Because I've been struggling with, unbeknownst to me, I've been struggling with anxiety for the last 4 years. And it's kind of only really been in this last year that I've sort of acknowledged it. And so I think, because I went to so many doctors about what was happening, and they were kind of focused on the physical side, and most of those doctors ended up by being like, it's not real. So to kind of have a doctor finally say, yes, like I'm going to refer you to a specialist who can help you, and kind of, have it confirmed that there is something going on, was really, really gratifying. But again, it's difficult to feel gratified when you're mentally exhausted from putting it all out there, you know?
Yeah, and I will say this, you should be proud of yourself for making that step and getting that help, because I mean, hopefully it helps you and it works, but even just taking that step in the first place, acknowledging the fact that, you know, this has been a problem in your life for a period of time, and reaching out, that is, you know, that's all you can do. And now, you know, you're on a path to getting that help, which is brilliant.
Thank you. So how's your week been then, Jake?
So I'm in a really weird position. I mean, I know the government have relaxed some parts of their lockdown, but you were talking about how you've been locked away, and Tom, you've been locked away too for 7 or so weeks. I've not been. I've been still going into work, still traveling up, commuting into London every.
You've actually had more work, haven't you?
Really, yeah, I've been really, really fortunate. I've actually somehow gained a full-time job out of coronavirus. How long that lasts, you know, goodness only knows. But yes, I've been it's benefited me, which is again a whole bizarre thing. Where I wanted to start though was that it's the fact that I am working, the fact that I'm referred to as a key worker. I've got a letter that says it all and everything like that. And that in itself brings so much guilt with it. So much guilt. Because I'm not I'm not a nurse. I'm not a doctor. I don't deliver food parcels. I don't do anything of the sort that directly, saves lives. I'm an assistant producer at a national radio station, and we do talk to people. We do. It's a phone-in station. It's LBC. We talk to people. We hear about all of these people in really dire needs, and it's those people that the doctors and nurses that are the key workers. So going into work every day, I feel so guilty, and I have done from the start. And I think that's actually increased this week specifically because the government changed the advice and because there have been more police officers around. Now, I'm
Right.
quite anxious when the law is around. Like, I don't know. Other people might experience this too. I know I haven't done anything wrong, but it's just like, oh no, they might come over and stop me. They might ask to see my letter. They might say I'm not a key worker, because I personally myself feel like I'm not a key worker, even though I have this letter that confirms that I am. I've been feeling quite, every time I get into Waterloo Station and I see all of these police officers, I've been feeling quite anxious. I'm trying to walk like around them, like I probably look really suspicious, but I'm obviously not. And yeah, I think from the get, that's been sort of it's a completely different experience, like I say, to both of you, but that's been my initial part of the anxious feeling that I've gotten during this period of time. Because again, I don't think I am a key worker. I'm just providing a service. People can listen to the radio while they are in the lockdown, and then that moves. I guess I move on from that, in the sense that my job is I take phone calls. And I'm in charge of putting those calls through if they further the conversation, the topic that we're talking about at the time on radio. So as you can imagine, during a period of time like this, we've had a lot of people call in who haven't been in a very good place, and hearing stories like that day in, day out for 7 weeks straight, I don't think I realised up until perhaps last week how much of a mental toll that it had on me.
Right.
Because you think about it in your spare time, you sat down and I'm playing a video game or something, and you just, your mind wanders to, that caller that I took on Wednesday last week, who had been furloughed, and then had lost that furlough pay because the company had said you have to go back to work next week, was shielding, was at risk from coronavirus and didn't want to go back to work, so the company had sacked them. So they were in a position where they had no money, and what was happening next? And they were crying down the phone. So your mind just wanders, and there's countless different experiences. All sorts of people just being in positions similar or worse or slightly better, but don't know what to do. And they're talking to you and expecting you to have an answer for them. And I'm sat there, I'm playing video games, and my mind wanders to these phone calls. And yeah, until last week, I don't think I had acknowledged how much of an impact that it had on me. And I think that has affected how I have acted. I think sort of the way I've come across is perhaps more, what's the word I'm looking for? I think the way I've come across is more blunt. I think I've both, I mean, I'm in a similar position as you, Elliot. I'm living with my girlfriend, and it's obviously incredibly fortunate that I'm not on my own and I've got that support there for me. But still, it's changed the way I've acted, and I've made specific. I sat down with myself at the end of last week, and I said, "Look, you do a tough job. You take phone calls from people who are in difficult situations. You just need to sort of get home when you get home, and you just need to detox, and you need to do something that completely." Like you say, Elliot, essentially just white noises everything out. You forget about everything else. But that in itself has just, if I could just say, that in itself has brought a problem. And it's that my get out clause at the moment from all of that is I'm gaming basically every hour that I'm not at work and not sleeping.
Yeah,
and that is not great.
Yeah, that's the problem with that white noise, right? Is that it's all it is a distraction, and it doesn't mean that those thoughts or issues go anywhere. It just means that they're not at the forefront of your mind in that moment.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So that it's the fact that you've experienced people who are experiencing the worst of the pandemic. The fact that you've had contact with them is still going to be playing on your mind, even though you're playing video games, right? Even though that's what's distracting you. And that's something that I also find really difficult, is to have a dialogue with myself about what I'm going through, if that makes sense. So the only experience I have with working through my problems is when I talk to my girlfriend about it. And that to a certain extent isn't fair on her, because I'm putting all of this onto her and helping. But like, I just think that, I don't know whether it's just a personal experience to me or whether it's an experience which all men can kind of associate with or relate to even, but I don't know how to have a dialogue with myself to work through my own issues, if that makes sense.
See, I'm the opposite in this situation. I know how to work through a dialogue with myself. I think I've been in positions in the past that have taught me, bad mental positions where I've been at my lowest, where I've taught myself how to have a dialogue with myself. I think what I'm struggling at the moment with is that obviously you've been speaking to your girlfriend. I've been speaking to mine. It's just that I've tried to take out the worst of it in my discussions.
Right.
Because I also know that my girlfriend's in the similar position to me, that she's struggling as well. And she's not got the ability to go out and speak to other people during the day. I might be sort of going to work, but I get communication with other human beings, in the team that I work in. And that is in itself, that's a respite from this whole virus. That's something that I would normally do. What I was going to say though is, but as a result of that, I've been playing more video games, and that's put a strain on, I wouldn't say it put a strain on our relationship, but it's essentially sort of blocked a bit of that whole, well, why aren't you spending more time with me? And that's something that I need to work on, and I am working on. In fact, we had a chat about this earlier. And yeah, I think I'm going to become more open as a result of it. I think I will still shield a vast majority of the difficult stuff I hear, because I don't think it needs to be shared. But what I won't shield is the impact that it's had on me.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important. I think I understand why you want to shield it from your girlfriend specifically, but I think having a support network of lots of people that you can rely on means that you don't have to hide all of it, right? If that makes sense, because you don't have to unload all of it onto one person, and then you don't have that guilt that comes with feeling like you're burdening other people. Because that's something that I also have really struggled with, is feeling like I'm burdening my girlfriend with my problems, because she's kind of the only one that I feel comfortable opening up to. And that's sort of a part of why I want to do this, because I want to make it more normal that, I want to normalize men sharing their problems with other men. But in expanding that support network, you have more people that you can talk to, and therefore you don't have to put everything onto one person, and you can feel like you have to maybe hide less.
Yeah, I agree. Hiding is a problem that I'm definitely dealing head on with. Like I said before, I'm in a very, very fortunate position. I'm not locked down. I'm living my normal life to, I guess, 85% of what I previously did. Other than the only thing I'm missing out on is, and by God, I wish I could do this right now, is getting a haircut, because my hair is just atrocious at the moment. It's far too long, and it's getting very annoying. And the other thing is, I just want to go to the pub. I want to go to the pub for a pint with my friends, and I want to see and when that happens, it will be the best. And that's, that's the sort of thing that is keeping me going, because as we described before, I'm bombarded by the virus every single day, not literally, but in terms of information, where I work at a news radio station and the only story is coronavirus. And I think the way I've learned to, I guess, tune out of that in terms of all of the doom and gloom and this, that, and the other is, I know at some point I'm going to be able to go to the pub with my friends again. And that is literally in my head what I think. Yeah. And that's also when, for example, my girlfriend gets upset or anything along those lines, or I've got a friend who's down or something like that. That's exactly what I tell them. I say, we all get to go to the pub together soon. It might be in a month. It might be in 2 months' time. It might
be that first sip.
Exactly. It might be in a year, but for goodness sake, it will happen. This isn't the end of the world. It will be great. And that's what I'm telling myself. How have you felt, Tom, over the past week?
Well, just before we nip into Tom, I do want to. I just want to say, because I've been meaning to say this since the start, but Jake, you absolutely are a key worker. Because I get that you're not a nurse and you're not a doctor and you're not a public transport worker or anything like that, but like the fact that you are part of a team who is sharing people's stories, and the fact that you can be part of the people who are uniting the country such that we can hear other experiences, that's key, and that's important, and that maintains that connection, that human connection that people need.
Yeah, and I was going to add as well, it might be hard, it might be easy to, but you shouldn't feel bad about beating yourself up about it, because at a London news station, your job is to hear people decide if it's yes or no and get them online. So it's your job to be brutal. And when you get home, you feel like you share a bit of that mental headspace as well with choosing what you want to and what you don't want to say. Is that it's adjusting between your work life and your social life. It's a lot harder than people think. And when you have such a long and tiring work life, like you work night shifts and work long hours, it'll be I find it also really hard to separate between those two things and being able to act in two different ways almost at home. So the fact that you are opening up and teaching yourself to speak to other people about it when you're at home is it's a really, really positive thing. You shouldn't beat yourself up at all about it.
I appreciate that. And that is, I think, the one thing that I need to focus on and get better at is opening up more about how that has impacted on me. But again, I think it's appropriate to shield the doom and gloom about it, because I think there's so much doom and gloom in the world at the moment that we don't need to pass that on. But you're right, guys. You're right. I do need to improve, and I like to think improving on opening up and talking about how I feel as a result of my job and the impact of my job on me.
And that's all we can ask. That's all we can ask of ourselves, is that we just are conscious of where we want to be and that we're taking little steps to get there every day.
Exactly. And it's not even improving as well. Like, you're already the most improved person you can be. It's just learning to talk a bit more, basically. And that's not improving. That's not de-improving, if that's a word. It's just learning to talk more. And it sounds like you're getting there. So
anyway, Tom, I've blabbered on long enough.
No, that's fine.
How has your week been?
It's been all right. No, I think stuff you both have brought up has definitely been prevalent. I think an issue, we were talking about Zoom meetings earlier. I think that's a tough one for me. I just feel with lockdown in general, it's very hard to know what your own place is, and it's very hard to find there's a purpose in what you're doing. Because with uni, for me, it was you get up, you go somewhere, you do something, you go somewhere else and do something else. So having differences in location was a real mental trigger just to get things done and moving on from past things that were stressing me out or something. But now it's all at home. Now it's all in one room. It's all of my stresses and all of my anxieties, you could say, are all plonked into one place, and it's hard to maneuver around them. But the Zoom meetings especially, it's just because you have, like you were saying earlier, there's so many people there. You go from you by yourself or you with your family or the people you're used to what can be 30 people in a group chat all talking at you, and it's a lot of noise to come into. And then so it's that for 20 or 30 minutes or an hour, and then it's all okay, bye, and then it's off again. And then like the moment you press leave, then it's you by yourself again. And it's such a quick adjustment to make, to going from a big huge crowd to nothing. I find
there's something very distinctive about like the silence after you leave a very busy meeting or a quiz or whatever. There's something very
and I think it's probably exacerbated with you as well, Tom, because you're in the you're on your own, aren't you? Essentially, are you with your dad? You're a dad.
Yeah, just me and my dad.
Yeah. So leaving, and again, you are a very sociable person in yourself. So not having, like you said, going from one extreme to the other is difficult.
Yeah.
So when you say that when you're in your room by yourself, you're sort of confronted with those anxieties, are you finding that you're trying to address them, or are you finding that you're finding that white noise like me and Jake are?
I think a bit of both. I think I address them, and then it's I'd say I definitely do address them. Like I think them through, and I think why is this stressing me out, and what's happening here. But then it doesn't get to a point, but then I think it's gone on for a bit too long, and then that's enough of that. If that makes sense.
So that thought process of rationalizing anxieties is something that I've gone through, and it never seems to help. Do you know what I mean? Like, it almost frustrates me more because I'm like, I can see rationally that I have no reason to be anxious about this, but I still can't overcome it. And it's that difference between knowing and comprehending. You know, and you can rationalize it, but that doesn't help often.
And with anxieties, for me, sometimes I'm a very visual person, so I need to have someone in front of me to know what they're feeling. I think just living a life on text and living a life on Messenger or Zoom meetings to an extent it's really different, and it's difficult for me because I can't, in my head, people are saying things, and to them they're saying it's what they mean and it's what they want, but to me it feels like it's not, because I just don't have that like visual trigger in front of me just to back myself up, if that makes sense.
And trying to sort of interpret texts, especially if you're having like a genuine conversation with someone, rather than just like, oh, how's your day, what you're doing. If you're trying to have like a serious conversation with someone and it's all being done over text, that can really make it difficult to understand, and then you're second guessing yourself, and like you might be going down a totally different path just because you misunderstood one of their texts.
Completely. I think that's just an issue I've had with text for a while. I think most people would agree as well that with texting it's never a full answer, but then it's always with the complication of like, am I texting enough? Am I not texting enough? And it's just a whole world of problems, I think.
It's so easy to miscommunicate things over just writing things. It's why I always thought meeting up and if you've had an argument, meeting up afterwards, or maybe not an argument, just a disagreement, meeting up afterwards and actually just sitting down and just bashing out what was meant to be said is always the way forward if you want to move on. And having the fact that is currently impossible, and the fact that you could do it over video link, but ultimately it's so easy for you to just switch off. When you're actually there with somebody, you can't just switch off. It's not possible.
No, you can't.
And that's why things, you tend to get compromises done in that environment. So I completely understand when, you might be at odds with somebody, or, something might be misconstrued, and you didn't mean to. It's so easy to fall into that trap of arguing. And I've done it. I'm sure Elliot's done it, and Tom, like, it happens. And I guess it's just a fact of getting used to this new reality while it is reality. And that's hard.
Because communication
it's a big change.
Sorry, no, you go.
No, it's just, I was going to say, it's all about communication. And when, with normal life, I say in quotation marks, is when it goes from that where you don't need as much communication because, you know, you're with each other, you can read body language, to then no physical contact at all. It's a huge change, and communication becomes such an important thing. And you don't realize about like how hard it is to actually communicate how you really feel. So that then I feel that you get lost in that, and you get lost in those words, and then, you know, you start to second guess, like we said, and doubt yourself, and it's just a slippery slope, I think.
Are you finding that you're learning how to communicate in a different way?
Yeah, I think so. I think just in a general way, just being able to pinpoint what I feel in a more specific way is definitely something I'm coming to terms with. Not coming to terms, just learning to do.
Yeah.
And just making it absolutely crystal clear. This is what I meant. This is what I meant. That's what I need to say with it. It's just, this is what I meant. And yeah.
How are you finding trying to keep up with people? Like, are you, because I've found that my social circle has massively decreased since going to lockdown, just because I can't stay on top of that many messages. Like, how are you finding that?
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit of a double negative for me because, you know, once my phone, if I pick up my phone and it's got no messages, then I think, oh, I'd like to text people. I'd like to talk to people right now. And then if I pick up my phone another time and there's just a whole multitude of messages, then I think, I really don't want this. I just want to be by myself. And I feel like it's just an endless circle of not doubting yourself, but trying to fill your life with people and then trying to empty your life of people, or not life, but empty the situation of people or your phone.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing, guys. This has been really nice. I've really enjoyed having this conversation, and I'd definitely like to keep doing this in future if you guys are down.
Absolutely. I think it's incredibly important that, especially at a time like this, but moving forward from that as well, that men especially, who often don't share their own personal experiences in terms of mental health, come together and talk about it. And especially like a time like this, as we've said, you know, when we are isolated and it is more difficult, we're not directly with our social groups. That is very important. So thank you very much for doing this, Elliot, and hopefully we can do it more in the future.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And thank you guys at home for listening. This has been You Okay Man. I've been Elliot.
I've been Jake.
And I've been Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Please remember that none of us are professionals, and if you do need help, please seek professional advice from either your local GP or any of the established charities that I'll leave in the description. If you want to see what else we're up to, follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Jesting Dog Productions.